Okay, it's starting now. Hey guys, I'm with Taylor, who is an ESTP. Taylor, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name's Taylor. I'm an ESTP, like you said. Enneagram 8. I'm a quality control manager in construction, and I live in Kansas City. Got an 8-year-old daughter, and that's it in a nutshell.
So, when did you figure out that you were an ESTP?
About a year and a half ago, I previously thought I was an ENTP because that's actually how I typed in the MBTI. But after having been around a little while and talking to people, it's kind of apparent that I'm an ESTP. So,
I feel like that happens quite a bit. Like, I actually know an ESTP female that typed as ENTP. I feel like it's like the questions are so skewed because it's like, do you ever have deep thoughts? And if you like say that you do, it's like, oh, you're intuitive. I think that's really dumb, actually. But yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it's very. I feel like that's a pretty common mistype in general, ESTP and ENTP. So what were the some of the things that you really like determining factors in which you realize, yeah, I'm an ESTP, not an ENTP.
people telling me mostly. I mean, people told me and told me and told me, but I was, I said, well, of course you're wrong because here, you can look at this. This is the test results. It says ENTP, which is a very ESTP response to that.
Yeah.
Um, but finally, someone caught my attention enough that I gave it a look and realized that, yeah, everything I do lines up with ESTP type, or at least SLE and Socionics.
Mm-hmm.
That was sort of the intro into SE over NE. So
How did you learn about socionics?
I'm still learning. I don't know a whole bunch about it, but it was sort of through that avenue. A friend named Diamond, she basically got my attention, said, "You're an SLE. Here's some of the behaviors. Here's how SE manifests, against NE." And we just walked through it sort of step by step. So I'm still learning about it. I don't know a lot, but the quadras are interesting. It's got some real interesting components to it.
What do you think is most interesting about, like, let's say our quadra, the beta quadra?
Well, we're the badasses.
Yeah.
So that's what's most interesting. It's also interesting seeing it play out like in work. Like I said, I work in construction. There's probably 50 people on the floor at any given time. And as I learn socionics, I can see quadra styles in play at work. So that's fun.
Yeah, that is really interesting. Again, I feel like a lot of people watching this don't know quadras. I think a lot of people watching right now are more into MBTI. So again, socionics is definitely a rabbit hole, but I think it's definitely worth looking into. And I don't feel like I'm an expert on socionics either. It's just like a ton of stuff. But yeah, the quadras are super interesting. And I find that they're pretty spot on. By the way, just like looking at you, and I mean, maybe this is BS, you have very eyes. Like, I can kind of, I know when people are like ESFP, and like you have like a very similar, your eyes are very similar to their eyes, and I think it's because of the dominant SE, which is interesting.
I've heard that before.
How would you describe yourself like growing up?
That's a long period of time. Pretty standard kid. I was doing a lot. I did a lot of different activities, sports and stuff like that when I was younger. And then sort of around 8th grade, kind of at adolescence, I went into a rebellious streak that really hasn't stopped. But I partied a lot in high school. Basically, sort of stereotypical ESTP stuff. I played rugby. I drank. I fought. I chased girls. You know, chased girls, ran from cops, all that stuff.
How would you say, like, discovering that you are like an SLE or ESTP, how would you say that that's kind of opened your eyes to some of your behaviors, or maybe even just like cognitively, like looking backwards, how does that match up, do you think?
I think it explains a lot of things, and I don't know if it'd be polar FI or fifth slot SI or whatever, but my self awareness isn't great. So it just gave me another way of looking at that in myself, and then understanding other people. I didn't understand until I was probably 25 that people have more bandwidth in their F experience, their emotional experience of things. You know, uh, you assume everyone is like you, basically, and I did. And then the MBTI certainly was sort of a on paper reflection of, well, that's not really true. So it helped me understand other people, I think, more than myself.
I know you told me, like, before the interview, you told me in your email that you were married to an ESFP previously. How would you describe that relationship? And was it too similar, or were there differences that you don't have to go into too specific things, but if you want to, whatever you want to talk about, really, about that relationship.
It was a disaster of a marriage. We met in college, and it was fun in college because we were the cool kids. We were good looking, we were fun, we partied, we were smart. We had everything going for us. In sort of in an artificial environment where we could just have fun. If we walked into a party together or a social situation, we were a great duo. But then after that, when we had to be adults, make decisions together, it didn't work out at all. Each one of us expected to be the ultimate decision maker.
And what kind of like things did you guys differ on? Like, what is a situation that cropped up?
Well, money was a big one, but I think it was more the specifics of the disagreements were less the issue than what they represented, which was the power struggle, basically. When we got married, she expected that she could make any decision she wanted for both of us without my input. And I sort of expected the same thing back. Ultimately, that didn't work. Ultimately, I decided for both of us that we were getting divorced.
I think that's so funny, actually. That's interesting. That's really interesting. Because I feel like, I have very limited interactions with ESTPs. I think that's kind of, for those, obviously you're familiar with Socionics, but for people that aren't familiar with Socionics, if we are speaking in Socionics terms, SLEs and IEs, which is you and I, we are considered duals, which means that we're like the perfect match for one another. And then for me as well, the SEE or ESFP in Myers-Briggs would also be, that would be my quasi-dual, my semi-dual. And so I've actually been in a relationship with an ESFP, and I felt like, actually, out of every guy I've dated, I felt like it worked the most, which is really interesting. But I could see how, because I know for him, he had a really good friend at the time that was an ESTP, who I still know. And they had that same dynamic that you were talking about. It was like they were perfect in social situations. Like they just like fed off of each other. It was like this, it was a duo, just like you said. And it was, they were both like, you couldn't look away from them. Like they were just, they captivated an audience. But at the end of the day, they kind of drove each other mad. And I don't even know if they're friends anymore. It's just interesting that you ended up marrying an ESFP, but yeah.
Yeah.
So.
And now the foreman at the company I work for is an ESFP too. So I'm the quality control manager. He's the foreman. So just by nature of those two job titles, we're going to have a certain amount of disagreement. So it's learning how to manage ESFPs or SEEs. It's something I've been working on for 10 years, and it's fucking exhausting.
Well, I bet they would say the same about you. I feel like a lot of people, a lot of different types would say that about ESTPs and ESFPs in general. But I like them. I mean, again, I have very limited. Oh yeah, that's what I was gonna say. What's really kind of fucked up in, well, I shouldn't say that, but like just like messed up in when we look into socionics and stuff, you typically don't really meet your dual very often. You don't really hang out with them in social circles, and actually you would, or at least at first blush, you wouldn't necessarily think you get along, which is interesting. And so I feel like that might be partly why I don't have a lot of ESTPs in my life. My best friend's husband is an ESTP, and we get along really well. But it's interesting. So, do you have any?
I've heard that a lot. A lot of people say, "Well, where are ESTPs? Where do you guys hang out?" I don't know, concerts, bars, construction sites, all the places, jails, everywhere you'd expect us to be.
Did you just say jails?
I did say jails.
I feel like that's so true, though.
I mean, it was mostly not a joke.
It isn't a joke. It really isn't. I mean, if we want to be real about the betas, they're kind of, betas in general, I mean, they're known as the teenagers, the drama people. Like, they have a reputation for a reason. So you think your daughter's an ESTP as well? You said that you don't really want to type her, or you don't really think that, it's kind of hard because she's only 8, but you're gravitating towards ESTP. What are some of those tendencies that you see in her?
I certainly think she's an SE Dom. She's very textile. She likes slime and squishies and all the, fluffy stuffed animals and stuff. She just likes textile things a lot. And she likes making things. She made it. It's like a little heart that she made out of cut up napkins the other day, but it's crazy cool looking. I don't know. I just think she's a very SE person. I think she's probably a T because of the way that she works her mom. She just, she plays her mom so well. It's crazy. But it's much more. She's pretty tactical in how she addresses her mom, how she addresses me, her grandpa, her papa. I've just sort of watched the way that she maneuvers, and it seems a lot more FE focused than it is FI focused.
So that's interesting because I can actually relate a lot to what you, like the description you said about your daughter. I feel like I was kind of like that as a child in a way, but in a different way, because I was like very quiet, but I also was, so like some kid, like I would just get a blanket. This would my mom would say this. I would just like go like this with a blanket. Like I loved feeling things and I would make things a lot as well. It was a lot of art stuff. And I also was told as a child that I was very charming. So I don't know. She may be an ESTP, but or
She
maybe
could, and that's like I said, I don't like typing kids that young, not for any reason other than I just think it's wrong most of the time.
yeah.
I don't think that you can tell at that age, because when she hits puberty, and God bless me, I don't whenever that happens, she's gonna change a lot. I did. Everyone does. So I don't think you can accurately do it, but she could be. I
Yeah.
don't think she will be an IEI, because aren't you all supposed to be rare?
Um that's well, okay. In Myers-Briggs they say that. I don't think it's as even the rarity isn't as basically what's considered rare is not when you think about it in numbers. It's like it's still millions of people. So I wouldn't just think just because we're considered rare that you shouldn't eliminate that. And also maybe ISTP. I don't know. There's a few different things, but yeah, I agree. It's kind of difficult to type a child. I mean, I've attempted to type. What are you really? What a this little shit just tore a hole in my tights. This okay, so I think he's an ESFP, which is weird to like type animals, but I think that he probably is.
Why?
So there's many reasons why. It's hard to say because he's a dog. So it's like I guess I'm kind of projecting human qualities in some ways, but I feel like he's very SE dominant, and he loves attention, and I just think it's in a different way than like if we were thinking between an ESTP and an ESFP. Even his relationship with my cat, one of my cats I think is an ENFJ, and they have a volatile relationship. I don't know. It's weird. I know it's weird, but yeah. What got you into your career, or like what was something that drove you in that direction?
Well, I went to school for economics. I have a bachelor's degree in economics, and then I went into banking after that, which is sort of a natural transition. Did it for 7 years. Liked great money. Didn't particularly care for the industry. Quit that, and caught a felony. And construction is a very felon-friendly industry. So basically, I moved back here to Kansas City and was looking for a job. And I sort of landed in a spot with a company, had an opening for a QC manager, or for a quality control technician at the time. The manager was still there. So I applied for that, sort of worked up, got certified in a few different things, and now I'm the QC manager, and I like it. Doesn't pay quite as well, but I like the job way better.
So what made you get into economics in college? Why did you do that?
Competitive advantage, basically. Econ 101 was it was macroeconomics. Introduction to macroeconomics was just one of the standard business school requirements, and I realized that it came really easily to me and nobody else. So I just sort of followed that lead. It was interesting. A little bit of interactive thinking involved. and I had a big competitive advantage in it. I still do like economics a lot, the topic. Banking as an industry wasn't for me.
So if you could do something with economics, what would you do? Like if you were just, I mean, maybe not even as a job, but just like.
I don't know that. I didn't look at it as learning a technical skill or something that was going to be directly applicable. It's not like accounting where you learn how to do the system and then I wanted to go implement the system I learned. I looked at it more as a conceptual sort of panoramic view of how money works, really. So I think that what I wanted out of that degree was more perspective oriented than it was technical training. I can learn a technical skill quickly. I mean, I got all the certifications I needed for this job now, 3 of them in I think 2 months, which was a cram and a rush. I mean, it was a lot of work, but I think for a 4-year degree, I sort of wanted something that was more big picture and conceptual, which sounds like an intuitive answer when I say those words. But
No, I mean, I can understand that, but you're doing it from a practical standpoint in a way. I mean, my major was international affairs, and it was the same thing. I'm naturally like good at. I feel like it's echoing again. Here, let me.
sorry, I'm sliding things around.
Okay. Oh yeah, it's not doing it now. So like I wanted to go to art school, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I decided to go to school. And my parents really wanted me to do business. I was originally an international business major, and I didn't really like business. I did not like economics that much. I think it's interesting. I just didn't, it was just not something that I really enjoyed. So I switched over to international affairs, which I saw as kind of the same way that you saw economics in a kind of a broad way of this will be a great skill to have because like I learned a lot about the world and politics and just a ton of different things. I mean, there was business stuff involved as well, but it's interesting that I feel like we have a similar reasoning. I mean, it's a bit different, but it was kind of the same thing in a way. What are like some big dreams that you have, just in general? Like
That's extroverted intuition stuff.
Yeah, I know, but still. I mean, can you come up with an answer?
I don't have an answer to that question, but I can sort of explain why, I suppose. I mean, both of us went to college not knowing what we wanted to do, and we chose majors to help give us perspective on things or a bigger, perspective. And I think that that's normal. I don't think any 18-year-old should know what the fuck they want to do exactly for the rest of their life. I think that's fucked up. But sort of the same way with dreams or ambitions or hopes, I think that to some extent it's a masturbatory process because, I mean, you don't know what you don't know. And 2 years ago, I would have never thought that quality control at an architectural precast concrete plant would be something I love doing, just because I hadn't been exposed to it. So I think that as long as I'm moving forward and in a direction, and not regressing, then dreams or goals specifically will sort of expose themselves through exposure. So now, as opposed to a year ago, I could never have said I like doing quality control. Now I can say, hey, I really like quality control. It's got a certain niche of authority where everybody has to do what I say. without responsibility. Meaning, so if somebody can't show up to work that morning, I don't get the text. I don't have to manage the people, but I can direct the people. It's sort of a really good balance that I like, and it sounds like what SLEs would like from everything that I've read about them.
Yeah. No, I find that interesting. I feel like that is very SLE of you, to want that. I was just thinking when you said that, like the difference between maybe even like a ESTJ and an ESTP is like, I feel like ESTJs really like the micromanaging. They would feel like they would want to be more so on people's cases and not necessarily direct them, but like be more specific with them. Or even in a way, I feel like it's interesting. Do you have any moments where you feel like you have like intuitive moments? I mean, obviously everybody does, but like, do you have moments where you're like, oh, I feel really intuitive?
Normally in a briefly premonitional sort of way.
Okay.
But I don't know. I think that I'm fairly intuitive for an SLE. I've heard that quite a bit, and it seems to be true. But still, it's still far removed from you having an intuitive moment. But yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I just say that because like I feel like there's times where I feel like I may have whatever the opposite is, so like extroverted sensing, kind of going into like, I mean, obviously I would never be completely great at extroverted sensing, but like there's times where I feel like, oh, well, is this what it feels like? Basically, I guess the question is, do you ever have a feeling of feeling like an IEI? Like, do you ever feel like, oh, I'm an INFJ and MBTI or INFp and Socionics or whatever? Do you have that feeling ever?
Explain it to me. I mean,
it's hard for me to explain.
Because a good SC experience is the flow. If you're in a flow state.
Yeah.
So if you've ever been in a flow state, you instantly know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. I feel like I can relate to that. It's just like it's hard for me to like kind of, because it's hard. I don't know. Like there's moments where I also feel like when I mean, there's been one moment, well, not, there's been a few moments, but like, especially like when I'm drinking, and I feel like this is kind of normal, but like, I feel like I really get into that, like, as close as it is possible for me to be an SLE as I can be, if that makes sense.
When you're drinking?
I don't know. Yeah. Like
that
if I'm
probably
drunk.
Is true.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's like really something that would happen with you. I don't think that's really something that happens like if you're drinking, but do you kind of get what I'm saying? Like,
mm-hmm.
Do you ever
I don't ever feel very intuitive when I'm drinking.
Yeah, I mean, not like drinking.
I feel more sensing. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I guess I don't know that, every now and then, like I said, in sort of a premonitional way, if like shit's about to hit the fan, there's sort of that charge in the air. And sometimes I feel like the only one in the room to notice it and sort of get out of the way before shit actually hits the fan. I mean, that's a familiar experience, but I wouldn't say it happens a lot. Normally I am the shit in the fan. So
that's interesting. What advice would you give to other, well, I mean, people in general, but even specifically like other extra sensors?
I think to like to younger ESTPs or probably SEEs too, I would say slow down and think about it. But to most people I've met in the MBTI community, intuitives, I would say the opposite. Say stop fucking thinking about it. You're overthinking it.
So for more dominant sensors, you would say you need to like slow down, and then for more intuitive people or people that are more in their head, just like stop thinking as much. That makes sense.
Everything's a balance, and I've noticed, especially in MBTI communities, that people will just, it's simple things. They'll just overthink and overthink and overthink, and end up just sort of getting stuck in the muck of their own fear, but they've totally made up the whole thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd say just do some things.
What would you say, like, I mean, you probably have seen this, but there's a lot of, like, I feel like prejudice towards sensing types in general. What would you say to people that think that sensors are, you know, lesser than like intuitives on an intellectual level or whatever, you know?
I wouldn't really say anything to them, because it's understandable why they would think that way. The type descriptions make sensors sound dumb. The questions, like we mentioned, are very skewed sort of in their phrasing. The whole system, the culture is portraying sensing as very two-dimensional.
Yeah.
I think that that's more because people don't know how to describe intuition than anything. So I don't think that I really wouldn't have anything to say. I don't feel very strongly about it. I'm kind of annoyed when someone's obviously really dug into this narrative. That's annoying, but for a different, it's not personally annoying. It's like, God, you're fucking stupid annoying. Yeah. But no, nothing. Just keep, if people are interested in this stuff and keep learning about it, and the deeper you get into typology and the more people that you meet in it, eventually people will probably realize that my perception on sensing was wrong, as was mine for 2 years. But part of that is you read an ESTP type description, it doesn't leave a lot of room for much thinking at all.
Yeah, I feel like especially in MBTI, I feel like there's this narrative that sensors. I'm actually going to make a video called S's for Stupid, because I mean, just as like a clickbaity title in a way, because I don't think that. I think that people are real. I mean, it's like you said, when you got into it, probably typing as ENTP, you're like, yeah, I mean, this makes sense. I'm smart. I'm these things. And I feel like sensors are just like deemed as like these stupid people. And I mean, I think you're right in the sense of not really caring about those people. They obviously don't know what they're talking about. They're just maybe ignorant to those things. Because some of the most intelligent people in the world are sensors, and it's interesting. What would you say specifically about like ESTPs that you think people misunderstand?
Well, I mean, at face value, it's if you read an ESTP type description, like I said, it's the dumb jock is sort of the stereotypical portrayal, and it's not, like all stereotypes, there are certain aspects of it that are true. But it was just such a shallow description of what a person would behave like with these functions that I didn't see myself in it at all. Well, sincerely did not see it until I started looking at deeper ones. And now, I don't know. You know, there's stereotypes all over about different things, and I think personally, I think that some of the ones that come with ESTP, especially ESTP Enneagram 8, like I am, are kind of fun. People, you know, it's a very stereotypical bad guy personality type combination. So it's kind of amusing, but
Speaking of ESTPs that are also Enneagram 8s, did you ever watch EJR&D or did you watch
I've
this?
seen a little bit of it. I think that he kind of stopped making stuff about the time I started getting into it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm familiar enough with him to be familiar enough.
Did you
I
feel
don't
like,
know that
oh, go
I don't
ahead.
think he's an 8.
He said that he's an 8. I mean, he may not be.
Yeah, and it's impossible to know. If he says he's an 8, he would probably know better than I would about himself. I just personally he didn't feel like an 8 to me when I watched him. He does seem like an ESTP,
Yeah.
but and I enjoyed his videos.
Yeah, I really liked his videos too. I think like the videos that say like his name or whatever, or like his old username, like those are archived videos that I think someone else uploaded. He does have another YouTube channel where I think he still uploads. I forget what it's called.
It's called God's Friend or something like that,
Yeah,
isn't
yeah,
it? Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I don't
But
know. Yeah, I would like to talk to him actually. I think that it would be fun to if I don't know if he even still does I think he just does his religious videos or whatever, but I think that it would be interesting to kind of compare notes with him.
yeah, no, I would love to talk to him as well. Like I actually learned a lot from his videos when because I mean, I guess I was into it before this, but like when I was watching his videos, he was still like posting. Um, and then I like actually saw, I don't know if you were there when watching his channel when he started turning it into like these religious videos or whatever, and then like deleting a ton of stuff. And then I think he deleted the channel and all this other stuff. But yeah, it would be really interesting to pick his brain.
And he knows his shit.
Yeah, he does. Um, what what is the craziest thing you've ever done?
I don't know. Even if I thought I could answer that question, I'm sure that I would not.
Do you have any weird things that have happened? What are, I mean, it doesn't have to be the craziest, but like what's kind of something that people would think, okay, this is maybe I wouldn't do this.
Um, Last year I got raided by the sheriffs 3 times in a month.
Why?
Uh, this officially drugs. Officially, they were drug search warrants. Um, Really, I believe it was because they were following trafficked firearms, and I got on the radar. And then, part of living in fucking Kansas, once you're on the radar, you never get off the radar. So, I was living out in a small town. Too much law enforcement, not enough crime. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so that was it was crazy. Last year was crazy.
Um, how would you describe yourself? Like, I know you kind of went over well, you went over generally how you were growing up, but what do you think do you think anything really changed within yourself in college? I know you said that you changed when you went through puberty and stuff like that, but like,
When I had
what
a
was your
daughter
mindset in college?
in college, very sort of what you'd expect out of an ESTP that age. Consume, expand, consume and expand. I wanted to consume more of everything, and I wanted to expand myself as far as I could. Kind of a firing on all cylinders all the time sort of lifestyle. Things changed for me. The biggest change in my life really was when my daughter was born, and that's when I took kind of a moment and looked at sort of the bigger picture of my life and said, I gotta start doing some things and stop doing other things. I used to like to fist fight for fun, go out and party and drink and get in bar fights. It's a good competitive team sport almost. But that was just one of those sort of things. It's like, okay, I can't get in bar fights for recreation anymore. I can't do this anymore. I got to do this. And it was just sort of just automatic. It wasn't really a thought process even so much as it was just, I just knew it was time to set aside this shit, pick up this shit. So that was a big one. That was the biggest one really of my life, probably, as far as a turning point or a change.
So you were still in college when your daughter was born?
I had just graduated.
Okay. Okay. So that was, I mean, that's pretty good timing actually. That it was like after you graduated and stuff. Because I know that like if you say she was born before that, that could have been more difficult. I don't know.
Yeah.
So besides like not certain things, how do you think you changed as a person when your daughter was born?
It gave me an external sense of responsibility is not the word that I'm looking for, but it's the best one I can come up with right now. Something outside of myself that was more important than me. So, my purpose or my main reason for doing things had just relocated. And when that happens, of course, that's sort of an epiphany. Really, it sounds silly, but it was an epiphany to realize that, oh my God, I'm not the absolute center of the fucking universe. She is. So
Um, kind of, well, this is just really random actually, but what's the art in the background?
oh, it's paintings of the Big Lebowski characters. When I was doing stuff that got police attention, I had a series of paintings commissioned of the characters of the Big Lebowski, and so they made it through all the legal issues, and I still have them.
They look really cool.
Yeah, I like them. They're expensive, but
Really?
yeah, but it's cool. I had paintings commissioned by professional artists. That's fucking cool.
Yeah.
And they're
I mean,
bright. They're very SE appealing.
yeah. I think the brightness and also like the focal point, like there's one main focal point.
Yeah.
Um,
And have you seen the movie?
no, I have not.
You should watch it. It's a really good movie.
Yeah. I've actually heard that it's really good. I should watch it. So what kind of what besides your job and college stuff like that, your daughter, what things are you most interested in?
Um, I mean, interested. I mean, as sort of something to learn about, I think that actually surprisingly typology has stuck, and Enneagram actually, I maybe even like more than uh, cognitive functions typology, whatever. But it's stuck as an interest point, sort of consistently. I tend to flame on and flame off of interests. This one has sort of had a steady smolder through for a couple of years now, which is pretty good holding power. I read a lot when I have a chance, which is less now that I'm working 50-hour weeks and deal with my daughter and stuff. I just don't have nearly as much time to read as I'd like, but I still do, especially at work. I'll listen to a lot of audiobooks. If you get on YouTube, there's a lot of audiobooks on there for free. So I
Yeah.
like to listen to that. I like music a lot. Um, I'm not a musician, but I like going to concerts, going to shows, rocking the fuck out.
What are your favorite bands?
Um, I like hard rock and metal. I mean, I'm 31, so I was kind of in middle school, early high school during the late 90s for the rap metal thing, Limp Bizkit, Korn, Slipknot, all that stuff. And I still like that shit. Korn is probably my favorite band.
I've heard of, I feel like I probably know some songs. I definitely have heard that band, but I mean, I've definitely heard of Slipknot. I know that for sure. Um,
You should listen to Got the Life by Korn.
Got the Life. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I actually feel like I might be mistaken. I feel like the last time I heard this was actually from an ISTP guy that I was friends with. I'm pretty sure he told me about that band as well, like years ago, which is
Probably.
interesting.
I've
Yeah.
noticed that ISTPs have real similar musical tastes.
Yeah. Um, so what do you resonate the most with the 8 in Enneagram?
If you read, the guy's name is Naranjo, his last
Mhm.
name. His Enneagram Type 8 description is probably the thing that I've resonated the most with of anything I've ever read. It is fucking crazy. Um, it's really dense, but it's wow. I mean, it's like, oh my god, that's me, and that explains why I do this. But it goes to a lot more depth. There's a lot of bullshit, flaky Enneagram stuff out there, and anybody who's assertive or gets pissy thinks they're an 8. But what he did is describe the lust component um, as a need for more in a way that kind of made everything else fall into place.
Yeah.
There's a lot more depth to Enneagram than just 8s are mean, 9s are nice, 1s are rule oriented. It's got a lot more depth, and I think that at least for me, for the 8s, Naranjo's Type 8 description really put the whole thing together.
Well, and do you resonate with like 8's fear point?
Of
Um,
being controlled, yes,
yeah.
yes.
Um,
That was probably the other big growing experience because last year I spent 3.5, 4 months in jail. And that gives you some time. I mean, that is the 8 fear point. You're stuck in a 30 by 30 cinder block room with 7 of your closest buddies for fucking months. So I did some meditating. I was forced to sort of expand my horizon in that setting. Um, but yeah.
um, you said that your variant is SOSX. Um, how did you discover that, and how do you think it goes with being an 8?
Um, Basically reading. I did some reading and asked. I actually about this asked opinions from a couple people whose Enneagram knowledge I respected, and the SOSX just seemed to fit. Uh, I do self-preserving. I don't think I'm quite as, you know, I don't feel like that gnarly old grizzled eight holed up in, a hollow tree. Uh, that would be that. And I think that I don't know, it's nuanced, but the SOSX just seemed to fit better. I guess I don't have a great ID point to point at, but it just seemed to fit better.
That's okay. I mean, I understand it. It would be hard for me to, well, I guess not. I guess, yeah, it's kind of hard to describe that, especially. Um, what books do you read slash listen to? Or like what kind of books do you enjoy?
Um, Actually, the last one I bought is Please, Please, or Please Understand Me. So it's actually a typology book. I haven't read it yet, but I bought it. The last one I listened to was, I've started listening to Robert Greene's new book, Laws of Human Nature. So I don't know if you know who Robert Greene is. He wrote the 48 Laws of Power, which is one of the best books ever. And so this is his newest book, but I've started listening to that.
Yeah. So do you like kind of personal development type books?
Yeah, I do. I do and I don't. There's some really good ones, and there's some really annoying, stupid shit. Um, that's really what I've been. I mean, that's really about what I've been reading for the past year. Uh, when when I went to jail without bond, when I realized I was going to be in jail for a while, I talked to my mom and I said, "Well, I'll read whatever you want to send me. Any book you send me, I'll read it. So this is your opportunity to put whatever in my brain you want to." And she sort of sent me some of them were self-development. A lot of them had more kind of like a spiritual sort of new agey kind of bend on things. And so I read a lot of that shit in jail and sort of got into that headspace. And now that I'm out, I'm not still in, I don't still read super new agey spiritual things like that, but sort of the headspace of self-improvement and growth has sort of stuck.
Yeah.
So that's what I've been listening to or reading for probably the past year and a half. As far as novels go, I really like Chuck Palahniuk. He's the guy who wrote Fight Club,
Oh yeah.
and then this right here, and then this guy Bernard Cornwell. Um, he write these are a great series of books, and they're about Vikings. It's very SLE sort of Viking warfare shit, but it's awesome.
What do you think your mom's type is?
INTP.
Interesting. I mean, that would make sense why she would send you the kind of self-development, personal development type books.
Mm-hmm.
But we're kind of talking about like going off of what you said about Vikings. I mean, this kind of correlates. Um, is there anywhere outside of the US that you really want to visit?
Yeah, I would really. I'd like to visit. I want to see the pyramids, and I want to see that big temple. What is it in Cambodia? They got that crazy the ruins. There's some ruins in Cambodia that look cool. There's a church in the Czech Republic that's got a shitload of like skulls and bones. That was cool. I mean, there's just a lot of cool stuff I'd like to see. But the pyramids is kind of the one that I can point to, and everyone knows exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah, I'd like to see those.
Yeah, that would be really cool. Have you been anywhere that that you're like? What is your favorite place that you've ever visited? It doesn't have to be like outside of the U.S. It could be in the U.S.
San Diego.
Why?
It's nice and the food was good, and I got to surf. Surfing is fun, so I want to go surf more.
What sports did you play growing up?
Baseball, soccer, basketball. I did wrestling for a few years and was good at it, but didn't stick with it. Same with cross country. I was really good at cross country, but hated it. Didn't stick with it. I played rugby all 4 years of high school, and then I got invited to play on the college team, but I did not like. I went to University of Missouri, and I did not like their team. Um, I thought the players sucked. I mean, it was just kind of slop team at the time. That was just a bunch of fucking losers running around playing shitty rugby and acting like douchebags. So I did not play in college, even though I was invited.
Were you like involved in any I mean besides uh like doing social things, were you involved in anything in college, like organizations and stuff?
No, I rushed. I mean, I worked most of college, and I rushed. I rushed all the fraternities for as long as they would keep rushing me. Because when frats rush, potential new members, they take us out on their tab and party with us, and get us all liquored up so that we'll commit to their frat. I didn't want to join a frat, but I did like partying on their tab for free. So I rushed frats for about 2.5 years, but I never joined anything. No.
That's interesting that you say that, because I mean I never like rushed, but I actually remember telling my friend my freshman year, I said I kind of want to join a sorority just to like wreak havoc. Not because I want to join the sorority, but just because I want to just do it, and like I don't know. I it was funny. That's funny that you kind of had. I mean, it's not the same, but it's interesting. Um, so I am kind of drawing a blank as to what questions to ask. Um, oh, what's this? I'm looking at the chat, and
Okay.
someone said, let's see. Do you have the chat open? I mean,
I don't. But if you read the question, I'll.
let's see. Oh, okay. So Jeffrey Sherman said, this is kind of back to when you were talking about your daughter. He said, I'm not, he's just quoting you where you said, I'm not the absolute center of the fucking universe. She is. He said, what would make you think you were, oh, what would make you think you were in the first place? I want to know, I want to understand the thought process? I think that is an interesting question.
I don't know that it's a thought process so much as a lifestyle or a habit or a pattern of behavior. It's sort of the lack of a thought process. It's
So
hedonistic, really.
interesting.
Because I'm not religious. I wasn't, and I'm still not. I'm not. I'm not religious. I'm as agnostic and sterile as I think anyone could be on that front. So besides that, what really was there? So yeah, it is a hedonistic lifestyle more than thought process.
Yeah, it makes sense. Let's see. Yeah, there's not too many questions. I mean, there's a lot of comments, but there's not many questions. I'm not really, I mean, maybe I should know this. To be continued asked, has Taylor been on TYFP? Do you know what that is?
Yeah, TWFP. I have.
I mean, TW, sorry. TWFP.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Um, oh, this is, I don't even know if we're going to remember this, but this was earlier on, and I think you were talking about kind of evolving as a person, like when you, like basically how you developed and stuff. Michelle Wilson asked, what do you mean by self-awareness? I think you were talking about becoming more aware.
Is that when we were talking about how I use typology?
Could have been. Yeah, it could have been.
I don't think that I've got a good, consistently accurate idea in my head of how I'm perceived by others or reacted to by others or the impact I'm having. And I think that a lot of that really is the thinking feeling split. At least for me, being FI polar, and then when I took the official MBTI test, that's the one sliding scale. I don't know if you've seen official results or taken it, but they measure you on those sort of axes, and that was one where I was slid all the way to the thinking end. I mean, I think I was in the 99th percentile of most thinking, least feeling people. So really understanding that how I experience the world is not how other people do, to a great degree. That was a big leap in self-awareness. Because before that, thinking that everyone is like I am, I think that when people have respond more emotionally to things, I think that they're being fucking babies, and they're just allowing themselves to be brats about things. Well, possibly, but also they're probably having more of an emotional response to things than I am. So that's a big self-awareness thing. But still, I like to kind of find things like that to sort of keep myself in check. I don't realize a lot of times how forceful I can come across on accident, really. And like even now, I'm trying to be kind of aware of my own assertive motions or stuff and stuff. I can see myself in the corner down here. I'm trying to relax and not do this at you. And
That's
more,
okay. I feel like
yeah.
that's fine.
And it's really kind of owned from my own sort of aware. Really, I'm using this almost as a self-awareness tool now that I think about it. Because how often do you interact with somebody and you can see yourself on camera down there? Not very much, but
Yeah. I mean, I guess I do now because I've been doing a lot of these interviews. Like I have 4 tomorrow. But yeah, no, I get that. it's interesting because like I guess I kind of always knew that I was different and that my thought process was different than other people. I didn't assume that. So it's interesting to like I mean, it must have been really interesting to have that realization that, oh wow, I really am like, especially what you said about thinking that you're like in the 99 percentile of that. It's like, wow, I really am not like other people. Or like, I mean, maybe you are like other people, but like there's people like you, but there's also so many people that are not like you at all.
Right.
Um, that is a really I think typology for that idea alone is really freeing and also insightful because I think it's good to realize those things about just humanity in general. Um, so uh, yeah. So for the chat, a lot of people have been commenting on just different things about you. If you want to look at it right now, I mean, you don't have to, but what I do is I just open up YouTube and I go on to the live stream and I just mute the volume of the video. Um, because there's people have been saying different things. I think, oh, so Jeffrey Sherman also asked, and this is kind of going, well, this was back when you were talking about the stereotypes of ESTPs. Why are jocks slash ESTPs considered dumb? Why do you think that is? I mean, besides the descriptions, why do you think people think that?
Think that jocks are dumb. Sorry, I was reading the first half of that.
Well, just like mutually exclusive, kind of.
Because when you're engaged when you're playing football or rugby, you're not doing anything intellectual. So that it's sort of a mutually exclusive activity to a certain extent. And to an observer, it certainly appears that way. I mean, I know that when you're running a play, or when baseball players do a lot more thinking on the mound than anybody probably realizes unless they've played baseball. But they certainly appear mutually exclusive, the athletic performance and any sort of thinking. But I think the other thing is a certain amount of self-protection from people who, I've been picked on by jocks, they're fucking dumb, that sort of thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. I didn't assume that people that played sports were stupid, but I can understand because it's like a stereotype, especially in the U.S. Like for American movies, I feel like that is such a
Varsity
stereotype.
Blues.
What?
You ever see Varsity Blues?
No, I haven't. What is that?
What do you watch? Not good comedies. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. I feel like I'm just tired in general because it's late and maybe I shouldn't do two interviews like that. But
I was impressed when you messaged me back and said, "Hey, I've got one at 8. Let's do it after that." That's pretty good.
well, thank you.
I
I'm just not a night person. I'm a morning person, but
yeah.
I mean, if you have any questions for me, if not, if we don't get any questions in the next like couple of minutes, I think we should call it quits.
I think that's good.
Yeah.
I need to move around a little bit, so I'm kind of at my threshold anyways.
I agree. Well, and I think I'm just gonna go to bed. That's what I'm gonna do. So let's see. I mean, really, I guess if nobody asks a question, I'm just going to ask this. What would you say, what would you like to see differently going forward with typology? And this could be for Enneagram or Socionics / MBTI.
I personally would like to see a good Socionics channel. Let me rephrase that. Something that makes it more digestible. I know that there's World Socionic Society, and they've watched some of their stuff. I've talked to Jack a couple times, and there's good stuff there. But it's not. It doesn't seem to be presented in a way that's that's complete, sort of. C.S. Joseph has done a really good job, in my opinion, of presenting typology as a system in a way that is digestible. Now, it's not necessarily socionics. I would like to see something that is just the socionic system. His is more integrated from all sorts of different things, but something like that.
That's interesting. I mean, actually, that's something that I want to do in the future. I'm actually working with, I have a moderator on this channel named Andrew. I just interviewed an Andrew, so it's not for the people that are watching, it's not the Andrew that I just interviewed. His username is Square Heart. But we actually want to do the same thing that you just said, make Socionics more digestible, more appealing, because or just like easier to approach, because like MBTI, because it's so watered down, it's so approachable because it's marketed towards like, I mean, just like personality and just knowing your personality type in general, and also like for work purposes, that like it's pretty to comprehend. Whereas I feel like there's so much more value in Socionics. It's just gonna, yeah, I would like to in the future do like educational videos. Andrew and I actually have a plan in how we're going to do that. But it's gonna take a little while just because I want to do a really good job at it. I don't want to put a half-ass stuff out. So, but yeah.
And the fact that it's a Russian system makes it that much harder to access, really. But
yeah. No, I
well,
agree with
cool.
that.
That's what I want then.
Well, yeah. So,
So when can I expect it?
well, if everything goes well, it's been set back a little bit just because, so kind of going into this, we first talked about it, Andrew and I talked about it in June, towards the end of June. And I was supposed to, so I moved to Greenville. So I basically, it's interesting. I haven't talked about this on the channel. So this is kind of interesting. I was driving from California, because what I did when I moved to Seattle, or moving back from Seattle, I drove from Seattle to Malibu in one day, and that was 18 hours. And I would not recommend that. I did that by myself with 2 cats. I started hallucinating towards the end, was not a good idea. And I stayed in California, the Malibu area, for 2 weeks, or almost 3 weeks. And I drove all the way from that area to Greenville, South Carolina, where I live now. But on my way there, because that drive is 36 hours, during the day, for a few days, I actually would talk to Andrew the entire time when I was driving, or at least a significant chunk. It was like 6 to 8 hours and we were talking about this, actually doing the socionic stuff. So we were talking about that. But anyways, so I moved to Greenville, and we moved into like this really kind of ghetto duplex. Like I'm on an air mattress right now. During the end of June, and my mom and I, and we were supposed to move into our house at the end of July, but that was pushed back. And now it's almost December and we still haven't moved into the house. It's not finished. So basically, long story short, I was going to start doing more stuff on that sooner than later. And I've been kind of putting off making videos on typology because I really want to do them justice. But basically my plan is to use MBTI as like a way of helping people understand typology, and then a year or a year and a half from now, start really posting Socionics, like very educational but also digestible Socionics videos, even starting off with the history of Socionics and even typology and how it came to be, and how this branch of Socionics came to be. And actually, Andrew and I have talked about like the inner workings in the web and how we would go about it broadly. So I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, cool. Good luck with the house.
Yeah, thank you. But yeah, I mean, I guess, okay, the one other thing that we'll ask, because someone asked it in the comments, or I'll say, is as an extrovert, do you need alone time?
Yes. Yeah, but I normally don't realize that I need it until I don't have it for a minute, if that makes sense. But yeah, I do. And really, if I don't right now because I live pretty close to my work, but if I had a 20-minute commute to work in the morning and from work in the afternoon, that's enough. Driving and listening to music really is the best alone time.
That makes sense. Well, I know that you want to get moving. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Is there anything you would like to add or say before we end this?
No, just thank you for having me on.
All right. Well, I hope you guys are having a great night, morning, or afternoon, wherever you guys are in the world. And thank you, Taylor. Andrew was before you, so I am obviously really tired. But thank you, Taylor. You are my first ESTP on this channel. You're not my first censor. My sister actually is an ISTJ. She came on a few months ago. So you are the second censor, or confirmed censor. But yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks.
All right. Bye, guys.